Everyone. Good morning, good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Let's get started. You have to make me co-host so that I can share screen. I'm not able to share screen right now.
Yes, you are. Sorry about that. Yeah. And I will make Rahulji and Shamji also co-host.
Yeah, that'll be good. So, are you able to see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Let me share. There you go. All right, so let's get started. Very warm welcome to all of you. We'll start with our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurudevo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. All right, so Radha Radhe, good morning, good evening, all of you. A very warm welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. So today we'll continue with our Soul Soup segment like we do in every session. And as part of this series, we have moved past our fulfillment, happiness, and success and happiness series. Now we have started with a very important series that all of us can relate to. Not that the previous one we could not, but this is something immediately catches our mind, right? So it is how can we make our mind our best friend? Um, Essentially, it is minding and mending our mind, or in other words, mind management. So we will go into the mechanics of how our mind works and the psychological aspects of it, the discerning aspects of it, and the series is going to throw a lot of insights around get to know yourself. Okay, our scriptures, the beauty of our scriptures is it helps us read ourselves like a book. Get to know yourself. How does your mind work? And you'll be blown away to see exactly when you reflect back on it and think, you'll say exactly that is how it is happening. And all along, I was just simply following a script, not knowing that I could actually alter that script. See, it's like you automate something and then it follows the script until you change the algorithm, it will continue to do the same thing over and over and over and again. So we will try to crack that script here. So the idea is to make our mind our best friend. Like you can see, both are pally. Right now, it is our worst enemy. Like our scriptures say, Bhagavad Gita says, Uddhare atmanatmanam natmanam avasadiyet atmaiva hyatmano bandhuratmaiva ripuratmana. Basically, what it says is elevate yourself to the power of your mind and not degrade yourself. Mind can be the friend as well as your enemy. Really depends on what kind of relationship or how you nurture your mind. Okay, right now, our mind is our biggest enemy because it will tell you things that are not good for you. It will keep on telling you to go after short-term pleasure or dopamine kick more than going after the beneficial things. Now, today, we'll try to understand this through two true stories. Two stories. True true stories. A tale of two people. Like we had a tale of two cities. Today we are going to talk about a tale of two people. So this is a tale of, give me a sec. I just need to set up something and then we can start on this. Sorry about that. All right, yeah. So who are these two people? Let's look at that. This is a tale of, the first person's name is Helen Keller. Now, Helen Keller, now she's a renowned philanthropist of the last century. Okay, you can look her up. Her story, it's pretty inspiring. When she was only 19 months old, there was a severe infection that she had to encounter, which made her deaf and blind. Just imagine somebody who is 19 months old, who is deaf, can't hear, and can't even see. Now, because of that, she could not develop the ability to speak, and she would throw tantrums like babies do to communicate her frustration to her family. Now, when she was 7 years old, this continued. But when she was 7 years old, her parents found a special needs school and enrolled her for that. And then they found a teacher. Her name was N.A. Sullivan. And she took it upon herself to try to teach her. Okay, somebody who is deaf, blind, and can't speak. Now, she started signing letters to her hands, to Helen Keller's hand, but she could not understand. She could not respond. She didn't know what those letters meant, right? And but the teacher was determined to find a way to teach her. So one day what she did was she took her hand and put it under a water spout, like water is flowing, and put her hand, and then scribbled down the word WATER on one of her hands. And as she wrote the letter, something clicked within her, Helen Keller, something clicked. And then from that point onwards, she started understanding the external objects. And the same day, she ended up acquiring 30 more words, just experiencing and feeling that thing and then relating it to some kind of an alphabet. Okay, this is how her learning started. And then she started, understanding the signs related to the outside world, and she picked up the braille system, that is how people read who can't who cannot type and see. And then she started grasping abstract ideas such as love. Okay, that is how she started learning. And now it opened up a new door, a new ways for her to understand the world around her. And she devoted herself to learning all that she could. And then she wanted to, as an adult, she became determined to join Howard University. And her parents and friends, they were not too encouraging, but she persevered and finally passed the required test. And finally, he was accepted at Radcliffe College, women's college associated with Howard. That's where she got enrolled as well. And she graduated with academic honors from there, despite the fact that she was deaf, blind, and unable to speak. And now she wanted to learn to speak like others around her. And she was guided to touch the face, mouth, and throat of her coach and guide, Anne Sullivan. And while she was speaking, and outstandingly, she responded to this, what do you call that, kinesthetic, right? How we move our face and our contours of our face and our expressions change. And she started picking it up and recognizing the sounds of speech as well, just by touching the expressions around it, right? That's how she picked up. Now she learned to speak well enough to give lectures, that over time she inspired the normal deaf and blind people everywhere. And eventually, in the later part of her life, she ended up becoming a philanthropist, seeking ways to fund educations of others. And she went on to live till the ripe age of 87, 19 months old. You know how that journey unfolded. Now, here are a couple of quotes that she gave. She said that when one door of happiness closes, another opens. But often we look so long at the closed door that we do not see the one which has opened for us. That is one of the quotes she said. And then the second one she said is, life is exciting business and most exciting when it is lived for others. Now, this is Helen Keller. Like I said, it is a tale of two people. Now, let's look at the other person. The other gentleman name is Elvis Presley. Okay. Now, let's look at the contrast between these two lives. Now, this Elvis Presley, he was an icon of the rock and roll generation. Right? If we have grown up to that, we would know that he was an icon for that. He was handsome, he was wealthy, movie actor, possessed a golden voice, and often called the king of rock and roll. Yet he was wretchedly unhappy, very unhappy, dissatisfied guy. And he used to take a round of drugs to gear up for a musical performance, followed by another round to calm him down after the performance. One to prep him up and one to calm him down. And he gorged on drugs, sex, and songs that possibly thrilled his fan more than him. Okay, that is the life he led throughout. And through externally, he was so successful as people look at it. He was adulated and fame was at his feet, very successful from a material yardstick. Yet internally, he was nearly bankrupt, completely bankrupt internally. And he died prematurely at the age of 42 with a heart complications after serious health problems and a long time addiction to drugs. And he lamented. Contrast this to what Helen Keller had said. You know what he lamented? He said, truth is like the sun. You can shut it out for a while, but it ain't going away. Okay? Now, what is the difference between these two people, luminaries? What Helen Keller have and what enabled Helen Keller to do what she did beyond even imagination, stretch of our imagination, despite possessing only three of the normal five human senses. And what did Elvis Presley do not have that he failed so miserably in his personal life? Although he lacked neither fame, money, talent that all of us strive for. The key difference was the state of their mind, and mind management is what we are going to focus on as part of this series in our Soul Soup segment. So hopefully it puts some perspective. We spend our lives craving for fame, wealth, money, all that stuff, thinking that is the yardstick for success and is going to make us happy, but that's not the case. It is much deeper than that, and that is what we are going to spend a good amount of time over the stretch of next few months talking about the mind management aspect of it. Now let's get to our Bhagavad Gita topic. Three hands will take. It's a very tongue twister. And then we'll get in deeper into the concept of who is the doer. I'm going to recite it and we'll take three hands. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyet tattvataha Pashyan shrinvan sprishan jigran ashnan gachan swapanshwasan Pralapan visrijan grihnan unmishan nimishannapi indriyanindriyartheshu vartantiti dharayan. Okay, three hands. Who is brave enough? Okay.
Okay.
Sridhamya is brave enough again today. Huh? We'll take some faces. Let's go ahead. It's a bit of a tongue twister for sure.
Okay, I'll first take Uday Kumar ji. Radhe Radhe Uday Kumar ji.
Radha Dudishi.
Radhe Radhe.
या राधे राधे नैव किञ्चित् करोमीति युक्तो मन्येत तत्त्ववित् पश्यन् शृण्वन् स्पृशन् जिघ्रन् अश्नन् गच्छन् स्वप्नन् अश्वन् स्वप्नन् श्वश्वन्
Swapan Swapanshavasan.
स्वपन् स्वश्वसन् परलपन् विसृजन् गृह्णन् उन्मिषन् निमिषन् अपि इन्द्रियान् इन्द्रियार्थेषु वर्तन्त इति धारयन्. Sorry, I missed.
No, very well done.
Yeah.
It is a bit tricky for sure. Let's take two more hands and then we'll get started.
I see Vinamra 7. So there was someone who didn't do yesterday, right?
Number 7 did not get a chance, and I think let's give
That's Rupa ji. So we give, yeah, Radhe Radhe Rupa ji.
Radhe Radhe everyone.
Pandya ji as well.
Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tattvavid pashyan shunvan spushan jigran shnan ganchan swapan swasan. It's little difficult. Okay.
It's okay. Continue.
Pralapan vinrujan gruhnan mu mishan nimishannapi indriyardeshu vardanta iti dharayan.
Yeah, thank you, Rupaji. It's almost like Arjun asked Lord Krishna that can you say she sells seashell on the seashore, and he recited this shloka. Anyways, let's take one more hand.
Yeah, Sandhya ji, Radhe Radhe.
No Akashvani's, please.
I know.
And then you may have to, you've joined with two. So you may want to close one of your devices, then I think it'll get fixed. So let's take Riya ji in the meantime, and then we'll get started. We have enough content to cover today.
Okay. I see two hands. So I'll take Riya ji. Riya ji, if you can turn on video, that will be great.
It's the last one for the day. Yeah. And then we continue.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
नैव किञ्चित् करोमीति युक्तो युक्तो मन्येत तत्त्ववित् पश्यन् शृण्वन् स्पृशन् जिघ्रन् अश्नन् गच्छन् स्वपन् शवन् प्रलपन् विसृजन् गृह्णन् उन्मिषन् निमिषन्नपि इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेषु वर्तन्त इति धारयन्.
Very nice, thank you.
Thank you.
Is
Radhe Radhe.
please Swapanch Vasan. Okay, so let's get started. Aparna ji, you get the privilege tomorrow. We'll pick because we have a lot of content. So tomorrow, let's note down. Aparna ji will get the first opportunity. Let's move on. So this shloka, Lord Krishna is saying, those steadfast in Karam Yoga always think I'm not the doer. Even while engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, moving, sleeping, breathing, speaking, excreting, grasping, and opening or closing the eyes with the light of divine knowledge, they see that it is only the material senses that are moving amongst their objects. Now, this is a pretty deep concept. See, it's like when you keep on progressing spiritually, you start understanding the building entities, building blocks, even of your body, and you understand that this is nothing but the material energy at work. Now, that is a pretty elevated understanding, but let's see what are what is the stepping stone, what is the consciousness we need to build, and how does it lead to that. And one of the things that we fall trapped to is a sense of doership, that I am doing it, and that is a concept we are touching on. So let's get started with that topic for the day. And it's going to be an interesting topic. We'll have a bit of a discussion on that as well. So let's move. Yesterday we spoke about this topic of even a leaf cannot move without God's will. Right? We said Bhagwan ki marzi ke bine patta bhi nahi hilta. What does it truly mean? We spoke about that yesterday. It basically refers to the fact that the energizer, the source of energy, is God. Right? That is why we say that it's not that we leave everything to God and let him do that, which is called Ishwar Tushti as such, okay, where we leave everything to God. If God desires, this will happen. When the time will come, it will happen. All that stuff is Tushtis basically. So it's only because God energizes us. He's the source or the fountain of energy behind everything. It's like hand picking up something. And then who's the true doer? We'll talk about some of those analogies and continue to build on this topic, okay? We'll throw some more light on this topic. Now, matter is like the tongs in the kitchen, right? Tongs is a pretty good object. You can move things, maneuver things around with it. Now, is tong doing the things? Tong is not doing the thing. There is a hand which is supplying the energy, right? So that is essentially the concept. Now, let's look at some more examples. Tongs could say, we have been lifting things in the kitchen. Thank us for what we are doing. It won't make sense. Then hand will say, why should I thank you? If I don't hold you, you will just remain lying on the tabletop. I'm energizing you. So if you think about it, who's the power source behind it? And then the mind comes in, and mind will tell to the hand that if I don't energize you, you'll be like a hand in sleep. It is me who is inspiring you to work. Now the mind has the ego if I am doing the doer. You see how the tongue is not there, and then tongue is energized by hand, hand is energized by mind, but the buck doesn't stop here. Now intellect will come in, he'll say, without my intervention, you won't even know which is the front end, which is the back end of the tongs. I am telling you to help make the decision and do it the correct way. So the intellect says, I am the doer. Who is the doer here? Tong is definitely not. Hand is also not. Mind is also not. Intellect is also not. And intellect also is made of the insentient material. It receives its inspiration from the soul. Now you will say soul is the doer, right? We have traced it back to the soul. Now, if you look at when you're driving the car, you may say I'm driving the car, but the steering would so without me, you cannot. Now the steering, then it goes to the axle. Axle will say, piston will say. So we have to trace it back to the real source here. And then the soul, we have traced it back to the soul. Soul is energizing it. And only because of that, the tongue is moving, right? Now, who's energizing the soul, if you think about it, right? That takes it to the next level. Inside the soul is the super soul. From there, all the energy begins. And Sarv Bhutatma Bhutatma. The previous concept we spoke about Atma. So it is the source of all the sources. The buck stops at the super soul. It is energizing it. Now, if it is energizing it, then the super soul is the doer. Is super soul the doer? Now, the topic that we have picked up is we are the doer and yet we are not the doer, is what we are trying to resolve this paradox. Okay, so let's understand the super soul is energizing it. Now, all the bad deeds that happen in this world, is super soul doing it? Yes and no. Why yes? Because it's the source. Why no? Because if God was inspiring everything, then everything would be perfect. So that is the concept. We are trying to resolve that paradox, and we'll have a good discussion on this topic with the questions that might come up. Now, only the soul and supreme soul are sentient. Everything else is insentient matter. So technically, if you look at it, sentient is something which has energy, and insentient is something which cannot do anything on its own. It needs energy to basically to get energized or to activate it, right? Let's move on. And so whenever we accomplish anything substantial, we are overcome with the pride that we have done something great. That pride of being the doer of one's action is a stumbling block to rising beyond material consciousness. Now, if you go to the bank and present a check, cashier says, gives you the money. Now, cashier says, thank me for what I have given you. You'll say, what kind of a joke it is? It's my money. You are just the intermediary. Just hand it over to me, right? So same thing happens. You go there and it's just giving you something that belongs to you. Now we are the soul. Rest of us is the material energy of God. But we take credit for what the body, mind, and the intellect does. This is called kartitva abhiman. Kartitva abhiman. It's the material energy which is at play. Of course, it is being energized. Of course, it is being dictated by something. But then you are not the doer, and yet you are the doer. Okay, that is what we will resolve. Let's continue. I know it can confuse, but by the end of this, it'll make sense. Let's move on. Now, how do we perform actions? Now, let's get into a little bit of technicality here. How do we perform actions? Any action that you perform, okay, it's back. You do it through senses, karmendriyas, and directed by your gunas. So how do you do? Like you see something, then you reach for it, or you take some action, or you may just keep on seeing it, or you taste something, you pick it up and put it in your mouth, right? Any action that you do is basically you do it through your karmendriyas and your senses, okay, which is ear, skin, eye, tongue, nose, hands, feet, speech, elimination, and procreation, right? So that is how you perform actions. And then there are three gunas at play: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Okay, so dictated by those gunas, you take actions. Now, how does that work? Let's understand that. Who dictates our actions? Who's it dictating? Something that you end up doing, something is dictating that, something is telling it to do it. Who dictates that action? It is your intellect and mind. Your intellect takes a decision that, yes, this is something I want or I can do, sanctioned. Mind will go for it, senses, intellect will provide its approval, mind will direct the senses, and that is how you will perform the action, right? Through your karmendriyas, basically. Now, what energizes mind, intellect, senses, and karmendriyas? These are the ones that we employ to perform any action. What is energizing it? What is energizing is the soul, Jivatma. When the soul departs, these senses can do nothing on their own, right? This body, when somebody says somebody passed away, who passed away? Body is still lying there. Soul passes away. Soul just changes the body, right? So the body or our mind, intellect, senses, and all of our karmendriyas, they are insentient on their own. Insentient like because they are material energy. They cannot do anything on their own. It's only when the soul comes, consciousness is a symptom of the soul. And then it permeates our body with the consciousness, and then only we are energized and we can take actions. Now, the buck doesn't stop at the soul itself. What energizes our soul? It is the super soul or the Paramatma God. Our scriptures tell us, Ananyornyan Mahato Mahan. That is how God has been described. He's described as bigger than the biggest, because he has to be bigger than even the sky and pretty much the entire creation, because he has to uphold it. It is like a bird upholding something in its beak. Right? Beak, it has to hold it, so it has to be bigger than that. So he's called bigger than the biggest, and Ananyornyan, smaller than the smallest, because it has permeated everything in this universe. Like a spider's web, it creates and permeates everything, and then it rolls it back. And that is the elusive God particle that we're talking about. And that element has permeated our soul as well, and to energize it, which is the Paramatma aspect of it. And that is where our scriptures call it Sayujya Dwa Suparna Sayujya Sakha. He is the one which is the second bird we spoke about in the previous shloka. One is our soul, and the second is the one who's simply noting down our karmas seated inside us. So he is the source or the cause of all causes, and he's the ultimate source of energy that our soul derives from as well. So if the God particle or the Paramatma aspect withdraws itself, we have no existence. Okay, there's no basis for our existence at all. Now let's look at it. Now, how is your mind and intellect driven? It is directed by your gunas. Gunas is past sanskars, inspired by Jivatma, free will, the current choices that you are making, energized by Paramatma, directed by gunas, inspired by Jivatma, and energized by Paramatma. Now, energy is, God is going to give you energy, agnostic to whatever action is, but he's not going to stop you from doing anything. Let's say you decide to steal or commit a crime. God is not going to say, hey, I'm going to stop you. I cannot give you energy. Sorry. Powerhouse will continue to do that. But the power that is supplied, there is a bill that is written against your name, okay, for the energy that he's giving. And that bill is called law of karma. Okay, it catches up with you. You have to pay a price for your karmas. Nothing is free in this world, and free will is the most expensive thing. It is not free at all. And what is the expense for free will that we pay? 8.4 million. If your free will is not purified, which is essentially what the objective of spirituality is, if you're using your free will to do binding karma or more actions that are entrenching you more in this material world, then you are paying the price for it. Nothing is free truly. There's a price tag for everything. And that is where our gunas are dictating it. And then it is inspired by Jivatma. That is why Jivatma has to bear the baggage of our karma. Now you may say that, if it is driven by the material energy, then why should soul bear that baggage? Because soul is inspiring, it is energizing it. So soul has to bear the baggage of the karma. And it is eventually energized by Paramatma. But energy is an energy provider. Now, the same energy can be used to run a fan. It's like a powerhouse. You can run a fan, or you can run an electronic gadget, or you can electrocute somebody. How you utilize that energy is entirely up to you. Okay, and that is the free will or the guna combination that comes into picture. The Paramatma aspect says, I'm going to give you energy, but I will keep noting down your karmas on how you end up utilizing it. Okay, let's look at it through another analogy, which will make more sense now. How do we, because you might be thinking God is giving energy, karma is the soul, why soul has to bear the karma and all that stuff. Let's try to understand a little more through an example. So let's say this is a robber. I hope it's looking like a robber only. Okay. Now this robber, when he does a robbery, so let's say he's gone to a house to rob that. Okay. And then he says, you know what, I got a bountiful for myself. And then after that, he thinks it's about time I plan another robbery. That is one thought he can have, right? So it's an action that he's doing. He's doing what? Stealing or robbery. Or he may have this thought that, what am I doing? I should put it back. I would not like someone else to steal my hard-earned money, so why should I steal? He could have that thought as well. Maybe he has, read Bhagavad Gita or come in contact with somebody who understands the deeper concepts. So something has gotten activated with him. That thought can come as well. Or he may have a Robin Hood movement. He'll say, I'll give 50% of it and 50% I'll distribute to people and help them out. A lot of Robin Hoods are there. And people, they enjoy a lot of sympathy of people, and then they run elections as well. So he may have any of these thoughts. Or now, if you think about it, it is all energized by God. Any of the thought, anyways, I'm not going to get into that. Now, choices are dictated by the predominant guna at any point in time. He may be thinking sattvic. If he's thinking, what am I doing? I should just, put the hard, not do stealing. So he may have that moment. So he might be in a sattvic mode, or he might be in a rajasic mode. He said, okay, let me enjoy and let me help people as well. So it is a rajasic mode because part of it he wants to enjoy as well. Or he could have a completely tamasic mode. It's like, okay, I need to do another robbery. Any thought he can harbor. It's his free will completely. Now, this can be this whole thing. Now, depending upon the guna, predominant guna that he is inculcated in this life or past sanskars, that will determine the action he'll end up committing. However, he still has a choice to override any of these gunas, okay, through his free will. And what is this one? Which is inspired by the soul, as long as the right knowledge is activated in the intellect. So what happens is any act that you do Your intellect or your buddhi will tell you, is it fine to do that or not? And our intellect is like a vessel where stack of knowledge is there. Which one is activated? You have a choice. Okay, which one gets activated in your intellect, which you predominantly think or ruminate upon? And that baggage your jivatma or soul has to carry, because end of the day, soul is energizing it. It is drawing energy from super soul, that is fine. But your soul has to carry the baggage of your free will, because free will, like consciousness, is also a symptom of the soul. Free will is not a symptom of mind or intellect. That free will, when we exercise it properly, that takes us either to a binding karma or a liberating karma. If you are making any choice which is in tamas, sattva, rajas, then you are doing a binding karma. At best, you can do a sattvic karma where you do good deeds, noble deeds, philanthropic deeds, but it is still binding. It can at best take you to celestial abodes. Only when you override that and start aligning to karma yoga concept, where you are doing things for the pleasure of God, keeping that big picture in mind, are you taking a step closer to liberating karma? Otherwise, not. And this, now the key point to note here is that only if the robber in this case, or a jivatma, is fully surrendered to God, sharanagat, which is called the perfect state of surrender, then God becomes the inspirer and takes control. That point you say God is the doer. Until that point, God is not the doer. Now, do you say, now, am I going to take credit for everything? No, that is also not there. I'll get to that. But only when you are fully surrendered, God takes control of your actions. And at that point, your actions will be perfectly aligned. So God realized souls, they are surrendered, and their actions are perfectly aligned with God's will at that point. Till that point, we may have those moments where God is inspiring us, but we cannot say that God is the doer. There are actions that we have to take responsibility for, and there will be actions that we have to give credit back to God. That split will continue, dichotomy will continue. Okay. For example, Arjun was directing his chariot before listening to Bhagavad Gita. After hearing and understanding the message, he surrendered his intellect to Krishna, and God took reins in his hand. So now Arjun is nothing but a proxy for the passenger, right? Passenger is the soul. And when he stops directing and says, okay, you tell me where to go, whom to kill, and how to kill, and I will do that. That is the state of Sharanagati, and that's when God takes control completely. Right? He becomes the charioteer at that point. Until then, our intellect and mind is the charioteer. We are directing our actions. So we need to take responsibility for that. However, that's again, there's a dichotomy. We cannot take credit for all the good actions that we do. Okay, there's a reason for that. Now you'll say, you're asking me not to take credit for good actions and then asking me to take blame for my bad actions. What kind of a thing it is? Either it should be both or none, right? That's the first thing that comes to our mind. And that is where we need to understand this concept. There are two kinds of doers. One is the energy provider, and one is who's called Prayojak Karta, one who provides power and energy, and the other called energy utilizer, okay, which are multiple here. So he's called Prayojya Karta, one who utilizes that energy. Okay, and then if you look at it, multiple people use that energy based on which is dictated by their free will. Okay, so this is how the process unfolds. This is Prayojya Karta and this is Prayojak Karta. That is the relationship. One is providing the energy, other is doing the work. How are they doing the work? The different people are doing different things. A knife in the hand of a surgeon saves life, and the knife in the hand of a robber can take life as well. So that is where the free will aspect is coming. How do you exercise your free will? Determined by your gunas. Do you have the power to override your gunas? Yes, by activating the right knowledge. That is how you can align your free will and get it closer to the will of God. That is essentially what the spirit of surrender is. Okay, so this is how the process unfolds. So with that said, let's take a few questions before I move to another concept. If time permitting, I will get into that. Prayojya and Prayojak Karta. Let me go back to the previous slide, because this concept is very important to understand. People keep on getting confused. Who's the doer? Why am I? Yes, Sandhya, you had a question?
So, can Prayojya Karta be an insentient entity?
the Prayojya Karta can be an insentient entity. Yeah, Prayojya Karta can be an insentient active thing as well. See, in this case, we are giving you an example of tongue and hand, right? So if it is an insentient activity,
Entity.
entity, in that case, there's no law of karma applicable to it, right? Whoever
Right.
is using it, so indirectly, you still need a sentient entity who can take the baggage of karma around it, right? Knife will not get any sin. The person
Right.
who used the knife will get the sin, depending upon how they have used it.
So, like it can be or it cannot be.
It cannot be. Insentient doesn't
Okay.
have an energy of its own, right? Something sentient will have to use it. Otherwise, how
So
will
in
it?
this case, then we won't say that the tongue is
An
Prayojya.
analogy. It's not exact example. It's an analogy to drive home the point that one is providing the energy and other is simply following along. So in this particular case, if you think about it, the tongue is nothing but an instrument, right? The tongue in this case could be your body, mind, and senses, intellect. Without soul, it is inert, right? Like
Right.
tongue is inert, it is also inert. It's only the hand through which it starts swinging into action. And hand in this case is God's energy itself, which is activating it and making it conscious. So it's a play. So if you think about it, any action that we do in this life, right? We are like a Tesla autopilot car. You have no clue. Your mind is going as per the script. What? Because you have certain gunas, the kind of choices you keep on making and the kind of thoughts you keep on harboring. So we have no control over that. We are completely under the sway of our gunas. So even though there is a free will, but that free will is I mean, highly influenced by your gunas. Unless you take a back seat, observe your mind at play and override it consciously. That, okay, you know what? This thought comes to my mind very frequently. That is my guna. But I'm going to conquer this guna. Okay, I need to get over that. Unless you take that back seat and start overriding it, you're not transcending your guna. So what is happening? You already have a certain tendency. Now you'll think more about it. So what will happen? You are getting further entrenched into that tendency. And that tendency would become your sanskar. And then next lifetime, you have already energized that tendency. So again, it becomes part of your nature. Again, you're following the script. You're getting deeper. So it's like a going deeper, 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 unless you start observing it and start transcending it with proper knowledge. That is the whole game of spirituality. Yes, Archana ji.
Radhe Radhe Rachana ji.
Radhe Radhe. So I have 2 points. So one, what I understand is that unless we are completely surrendered, we are still the doers. So that's
True.
my first question.
Right.
And then the second is I can still control my gunas by consuming what I eat, what I see, and what I listen to with my senses, right?
True. You can
Or
influence your gunas. You can certainly influence your gunas by giving it the right food.
okay.
Right food, because we have a big influence based on what we consume through our senses, right? If you are going to watch bad things throughout the day,
Right.
of course your mind will I mean, it's a food you are giving to your mind, right? And then if you watch tamasic things throughout the day, you have those kind of dispositions only.
Right.
Having said that, yes, until we are fully surrendered, you are still a doer. Now,
Yeah.
with the caveat that you don't start taking a pride of that doership.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
here's how it works. If something good gets done, this is the mindset one needs to cultivate in the path of devotion. If something good gets done through you, you attribute that credit back to God. That, okay, you inspired me and used me as an instrument to get something good accomplished.
Yeah.
And when something bad happens, you take accountability because of your imperfection, it happened. With
Yeah.
this attitude, you are getting closer to the spirit of surrender, as well as will draw more of God's grace. This is the right attitude to harbor to progress quickly on this path.
Okay. Thank you so much, Radhe.
I had explained this concept through a window and a mirror movement. Even in leadership, in corporate leadership, they talk about the big good leaders. When something good happens, right, in their project, let's say you succeed in some running a project or a program or a big some success you taste, right? They're always looking outside to share that credit with, right? So window movement. You look out and say, hey, these are the people who enabled me. So you share the credit with team and you want to stay behind and give limelight to people who have truly helped you. Okay, that is
Yeah.
called a window movement. And mirror movement is when something bad happens, they chin up and say, okay, I take accountability
Hmm.
for it. That is a good quality to have as a leader. Our material consciousness is just the opposite. Something good happens, I did it. Okay, you
Hmm.
want to flatter your ego. Something bad happens, blame it on others. So this is the paradigm shift from a spiritual perspective. And the same thing you do when something good happens, you attribute it to God. Something bad happens, you take accountability.
Hmm.
So that will progress very quickly. I hope I
Thank
answered.
you. Yes, very nice. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe. Thank you, Archana.
Keshav ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
Nitinji, you narrated a very good story of robber and all that. But I have a little my input. Like robber, if he wants to steal more and more, I think you mentioned that's tamasic. But my viewpoint is that is still rajasic. He may be doing more. That is lust, increasing lust, and that is rajasic. Now
Sure.
coming to the tamasic, when he uses knife or gun to resist to protect himself, even a single cut made to the owner of the property and money, whatever he was robbing, then the tamasic starts.
Sure.
And it may lead to even his death or whatever. I mean, the owner, not the robber. Radhe
Sure.
Radhe.
Radhe. So anything sharp and blood and cut, so that makes it tamasic. Good point, Keshavji. Thank you. Yes, so the idea is, see, this robber may have a predisposition towards grabbing stuff from people, right? So that is his natural guna. That okay, I'm going to rob somebody and make a living out of it. That is his natural guna. But who knows, he might have attended one of our sessions, or might have come in contact with a saint or might have read a scripture where the deeper secrets of life might have gotten revealed to him and gotten stuck in his head, and that knowledge might have gotten activated. That means now he's swimming against the tide. His natural disposition is telling him, go for it, rob it. But then the knowledge saying, no, don't do it. Let me suppress my natural instincts. Now, when he does that, that's when he started transcending his gunas. And all of us have that opportunity to conquer our predispositions and natural instincts. And that is essentially what scriptures are telling us. Don't follow the script, because you are following the script, then you are going deeper and deeper into it. That is an opportunity to transcend our gunas and finally get to the Shuddha Sattva. Right now, we can go from tamas to Shuddha Sattva as well, but tamas to rajas to sattva, and then finally beyond that as well. So again, I keep on giving the same example. The act remains the same. Act doesn't have to change, right? So whatever we are doing, we could do it with a consciousness that, end of the day, God is giving this an ability to help somebody. So thank God for that, and think you are just an instrument, and don't have that pride of I have helped somebody or I'm so and so great, right? If you have that pride while helping somebody, then it is a sattvic gun. You'll still get an award for that in terms of a better life, maybe a celestial abode, but that is also temporary. But when you do with the spirit, that okay, it is an opportunity and a privilege. Not everybody gets that, and I have an opportunity to serve, uh, you know, somebody who belongs to God or be His instrument. Then it becomes a liberating karma, and it starts purifying our consciousness around it. That's how it goes. Okay, any more questions? We'll continue to build on this topic. It's a very interesting topic on the sense of doership, but this is how it goes. So we are the doer, and yet we are not the doer. This is how it goes basically. And once we are perfectly surrendered, then God takes control of all of our action. He said, all right, now I'm going to direct you. You have asked me to become your charioteer. Now I'm going to take control of your horses and reins and everything. But until that point, we have to take responsibility for our bad actions and attribute it back to God for the whatever little good goes. We become an instrument for that. Yes, Shamji.
Radhe Radhe Shyam ji.
Yeah, rather than. No, you said that we predominantly our sanskars decide how we behave, act this particular life. Normally,
Our gunas, true. No,
our
sanskars
gunas,
play. Sanskars
past
are
gunas,
actions
sanskars.
and our dispositions, but our gunas, typically our gunas dictate what we are feeling. And though our mood is changing throughout the day, Sometimes we feel like enjoying, sometimes we just want to have a peaceful, calm time. Sometimes we are anger, frustration, agitated. It keeps on fluctuating throughout the day. But we are participating on those gunas as opposed to taking a back seat, and they call the Sakshi Bhav or the witness consciousness, right? One of the very powerful tools. But when you take that and then harbor sentiments which are uplifting, then you are trying to transcend your gunas systematically. Otherwise, you're simply participating in that drama.
Suppose
The
I,
feelings and all that stuff. Yeah.
but suppose I do not attend these satsangis or Gita or God realized people or things like that.
God realized people is a very deep term. Okay, so
Yeah. So I stayed normally the way I am, suppose like a robber.
okay,
I only act in according to my past gunas or sanskar, as you say normally.
right,
So how
right.
do I realize that I have to change or change my life, this life for betterment? I do not know anything about whatever good thing or not.
No, it's a fair question. So
Is it all
ignorance.
predetermined that I have to change? When I say any has to change, or they remain the way they are always. Suppose people we are in this group, so we know how we are, how we were, and how we are today. Suppose somebody who is not in this sense or in this group or in this knowledge or this gyan. So how will those people change, or will they remain the way they are always?
Shyamji, it's an interesting question. So this is how it goes. Everybody is perfectly situated where they need to be.
True. Yeah.
Okay, so the day they have gotten enough disappointments or slaps of Maya, one day, the day you have that spark that I need to understand the deeper meaning of life. Okay, I've not come here to eat, sleep, mate, defend, pay EMIs, and walk off in one day in life. Once you have that little bit of scrub, the floodgates might open up. Okay, when that will open up for somebody, we don't know. But the first spark has to come from somewhere, right? So when will it happen? We don't know. But if you look at from our scripture standpoint, very clearly Vedvyas has said, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. That's the first Vedant Sutra. That means now that you have become a human, you shall inquire about what are the deeper secrets of life. Who are you? Who is God? What is the purpose of this creation? What is the goal of human life? If as human you don't inquire, you're wasting your life. So ignorance is not a bliss. Okay,
So
so
it has to come.
it has
This
to.
has to come no matter what.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Okay, now if it has happened to you, let's make the most of it. Even after knowing, you'll still struggle. That is the point. But you should actually celebrate and feel good about it and congratulate yourself that, we are on this path out of 8 billion or 7.5 billion people, which is a privilege. Not everybody is. And they will probably come realize it later in life, or maybe not in this life. That is also possible. It is completely optional. Right. If you'll come either after facing the disappointments and stuff like that and knowing, okay, I need to change something somewhere. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, right? Maybe we have spent countless lifetimes living like that, and now we are fortunate enough to get that spark or at least some kind of an understanding to be on this path. But everybody is perfectly situated where they need to be, because until they have learned their lessons and exhausted some of their vasanas, maybe this thing will not make sense to them. You go to them and ask them, why don't you make it a priority? Oh, I have this, I have that, I have to do this, I have to enjoy life. I mean, that is fine, but they don't know what is enjoy life. It's like the same input, same output, right? That dissatisfaction, anxiety, worry, insecurity will continue, but then they don't have a plan B because lack of ignorance, the lack of what do you call that? It's purely ignorance, and that is certainly not a bliss, I would say.
So it's all
Somebody,
destined, immediately. It's all destined. It has to happen
no,
somewhere or other.
it is not
No.
destined. It is not destined. Okay, if you have made it a priority, some people learn it through experience, some by observing, and for some it happens just as a matter of growing up. That pace could vary for everyone. Okay, we don't know. It is destined. If you say destined, now you're doing bhagya tushti, right? That is called the bhagya tushti, where we leave it to destiny. If it is in my bhagya, it will happen, otherwise it will not. No, you have to inquire. You have to make it a priority in one of your lives, because the knocking will continue to happen in your door. It's not like somebody cannot say, I never had this knock in my life. They had a knock, but they never latched onto it. It will happen eventually for everyone.
So that's why we all retain this chakra of life and death. The sooner we understand, the sooner it's good, better for us.
It's good to lead life with assurance, certainty, and understanding the deeper principles around it rather than living in ignorance, right? I would put it that way. You give me anything to get back to my previous, I will say, oh my God, how treacherous this life is if you're simply leading it a mundane way without understanding some of the deeper secrets around it, right? Now, the quicker you align, see, homework is fixed for everyone. Now, if we do this much of this, we had this much homework, right, to do. If we do this much, less is remaining. If we do this much, less is remaining. The worst thing that we can do is we started with this much homework, we created this much for ourselves for our next life. Who's the loser here? And we keep on increasing our homework if we live our life in ignorance. That is the problem. So it's a win-win thing to get into spirituality, because first of all, this thing will start getting sorted out. Secondly, you'll become more joyful, happy, confident, and then it will basically spill over to all walks of your life, professional, personal, everything. So there is no reason for you not to invest in spirituality at that dimension as quickly and as sooner as you possibly can in human life. Okay, and if you're fortunate enough to have that spark, let's make the most of it, is all I would say, without worrying about others, because everybody is perfectly situated where they need to be. So somebody asked Buddha, what makes you the way you are? And he said, 50 lifetimes back, I was also like you. So it's good. We have this spark. Just latch on to that, okay? Don't worry about why people are not in this. And everybody's perfectly where they need to be. Okay, we need to focus on our journey aspect of it. Okay, let's take some other hand. I see.
Radhe, Radhe. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Radhe, Radhe. Thank you, Shyamji.
Actually, there are 2 questions in the chat, if I can read them first.
Sure. And please fill it in the feedback tracker if any of your question is not answered, okay? I'd be happy to take that in tomorrow, because we'll have another session, concluding session around this particular topic only. Yes, go ahead, Sandhya.
Smitaji says that God says, Mame Vansho Jeev Loke. Does it mean this soul, Jivatma, is ansh of God? If yes, then still that Atma has no energy of its own. It has to be energized by Paramatma. When we say Karta, Bhokta is Paramatma. It's not the soul.
Yeah, Karta and Bhokta, right? Now, Mame Vansho, when they're Ansh, there is an Anshi as well, right? So it is energy. Ansh is energized by Anshi only. And Mame Vansho Jeev Loke is Keshavji's favorite shloka, right? The moment he hears, he wants to say something about it. But yes, Mitaji, you can talk about Mame Vansho is a part is a part of the whole. And the part is energized by Anshi. Ansh and Anshi relationship, it is energized by Anshi, does not have an energy of its own. That is the fundamental thing to understand. We have no existence on our own. We are energized by God. He's permeated our soul as well. That is why he's called super soul. Our scriptures say, I said, right? Dwa Suparna Sayujya Sakha. He's our eternal friend who's seated inside us. If he gets out of us, the entire energy is taken off. So Karta is we, the Karta is God. Partly, I mean, again, doer, we are talking about, doer is Karta. Bhokta is the soul when it is exercising its free will. When the soul's free will is perfectly aligned with God's will, then Karta and Bhokta will become the same. There is no Karta is God, and then there's no concept of Bhokta at that point, because you're perfectly aligned to God's will. That will happen only when you're perfectly surrendered. Until you are not surrendered, you have to, Bhokta will be the soul only. Okay, all the karma backlog will be on soul only, although it is energized by God. This is how the concept works. Yes, Shri Ramya.
Okay. Shri Ramya ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. One question regarding Bhokta. In Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasya, that shloka, he said, I am supreme enjoyer, right? So little bit of confusion there. He is enjoyer or I am enjoyer?
He's the enjoyer. If we have inserted ourselves as an enjoyer, that becomes bhog. So if you think about it, any pleasure that we get, he's seated within, he can enjoy that too, but he rejects all the mundane pleasures. When you start giving him the spiritual bliss, when we start relishing that bliss, he enjoys that as Swarup Shaktianand. We spoke about that concept. He enjoys 2 kinds of bliss because he's the Param Purush, right? End of the day, think about it. If you're an employee, you're working, who is the supreme enjoyer? The owner of the company, only, right? Owner of the company, end of the day, no matter what you are doing, you're enjoying, but he's that enjoyment is rolling up all the way up to the owner's level. So by his constitutional position, he's the supreme enjoyer. The problem is we give him low level of thrill that he rejects, right? The mundane thrills and drugs, and if intoxication, you think he's going to enjoy that, he's going to add that karmas to you. But when you start giving him the divine bliss, right? That he relishes more. He said, right, one of the bliss is his Swarupanand, he can enjoy his own bliss. And the second one is the bliss that he derives through a devotee. And that bliss is even higher than the bliss he would get otherwise. So end of the day, he will end up being the enjoyer only. Okay, but then the good thing is that the bliss that he gets through a devotee is higher, and that is where he becomes enslaved to the devotee. He becomes your servant at that point, is what our scriptures are telling us, right? Because you are able to give him such a big bliss. Anybody that makes you happy, you want to do something for them, right? You say, okay, that person gives me so much of happiness, I need to do something for this person. Same thing God does. He gives me so much of bliss, let me do something. I'm willing to become your slave. Right? So that is how it goes. But he's the supreme enjoyer, regardless, because of his constitutional position. He's the owner, right, of this whole creation. Yeah.
Thank you. That's
It's a beautiful response. Thank you. And there's actually one more question, if I could ask. It's in the chat. Mahesh ji is asking, how does one build the attitude of executing right guna every time?
Right guna every time is very difficult to know that, right? What is the right guna? Right guna, if you think about it, is beyond sattva. So the practice that we can do is, that is where Karam Yoga helps, that you start building the consciousness for God, that every action you dovetail towards Him, make it devotional, no matter what you are doing. And then your guna would be perfectly aligned as that practice deepens. But right guna, if you ask honestly, though, all the three gunas are binding. Within those, if you were to choose, Rajas is better than Tamas and Sattva is better than Rajas. But the most perfect guna is Shuddha Sattva, even transcending all three. And the only way you can get closer to Shuddha Sattva is if you start practicing Karam Yoga in your day-to-day actions. Every dealing that you do, it's like, building that consciousness for yourself, that end of the day, everything is done for the pleasure of God. And purifying your wealth, a lot of actions you can do where you build those sentiments, right? People give away their wealth, 10% of their wealth, they start doing seva, they start doing devotional practices, then they start relishing that bliss. So it starts building that God consciousness. Now you are transcending your gunas, um, and you don't have to worry about the right guna anymore, right? Because your intent is all about building that consciousness and doing it as a service to God. So that is where we need to deepen that practice. Okay, last one, and then we move to our devotional segment for the last 5-10 minutes. We are doing Bhakti Shatak recitation. So maybe one more hand we can take real quick, Keshavji, if you wanted to add something.
Thank you, Ji, for waiting.
Radhe. Yeah, actually, I wanted to say in the beginning that every Tuesday I go another class for 1.5 hours. That is on Nidhi Dhyasan and Vedanta and different scriptures. Now, coming to the point, in that class, we were told about Nidhi Dhyasan and dream state and those states. So yeah, you know those. And details I'm not going. So there the teacher taught us that he explained dream, he defined dream and explained dream. And I appreciated him, applauded. Then I asked him question on those lines. May you please define and explain Manushya? What is Manush and how do you explain it? So he asked me where this question has come to your mind. I said, okay, next 16th Sunday we are meeting. I'll talk to him in detail. Now coming to the point, Mamai Ansho Jeev Loke, as you mentioned, it is 4-word game. Mamai Ansho Jeev Loke. The example I always give is Roko Mat Jane Do. 4 words. Roko Mat Jane Do. Roko Mat Jane Do. Reverses the instructions. Roko Mat Jane Do. Roko Mat Jane Do. Likewise, our Adi Shankaracharya ji explained, Mamai Ansho Jeev Loke, Atma is the Ansha of, Jiva. So I have deeply contemplated on this in meditation and all the ways. So my undertaking is, Purushottam Krishna is saying, Mamai Ansho Jeev Loke, not Loka. जितने जो ब्रह्मांड है ना, ये उनके अंश हैं. Because जीव तो उसका in part in itself. He himself is जीव. Satchidanand. So he himself is Jeev. How can he say it's my part? He is present in us, Satchidanand, Sat Purushottam Krishna, Chit Chetna, Vishnu Bhagwan, आनंद आत्मा आत्मा आनंदित होता है लाइक हमारे शरीर में मन आनंदित होता है खुश होता है मन खुश हो गया मन दुखी हो गया मन सैड मन हैप्पी सो लाइकवाइज दिस इज माय अंडरस्टैंडिंग एंड कंटेम्पलेशन राधे राधे
It's a favorite. We'll build on that when we get to that shloka. So thank you, Keshavji, always for your insights. Let's move to our devotional segment. We'll pick 3 hands for our Bhakti Shatak recitation, and then we will try to wrap it up at 10:05 sharp. Okay.
Just quickly, there's a question in the chat from Hiram Ji that they're new to the class and what are the class timings. So I just wanted to announce it for all those who are new. The class occurs from every Sunday to Thursday as per CST 9 to 10 p.m. CST and IST Monday to Friday now 6:30 a.m. No, 7:30 a.m. Sorry.
7:30 a.m.
7:30 a.m. IST.
So I see if you are joining late, it's 7:30 a.m. The timing has changed now from India, and 9 p.m. Central. You can check it out if you are in Pacific. I think it's 2 hour early. If you're in Mountain, it is 2 hour early. If you're in East Coast, it's 1 hour later. It's at 10 p.m. basically. So 7 p.m., 7 p.m., 10 p.m. So I hope you have taken note of it. Now let's quickly take 3 hands for our recitation and then we can wrap up the session. Please fill out the feedback tracker if not already. Okay, I hope we have posted it already. Let's do that quickly.
Okay. Anita ji, Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
शक्तिमान की शक्तिया अगणित यद्यपि बखान राधे राधे तीन महामाया जीव अरु परा त्रिशक्ति प्रधान राधे राधे Jai Radhe Radhe, Jai Radhe Radhe. Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
You, Anita ji, Radhe Radhe. Let's take a couple of more hands.
Okay. Next, I'll take Sairam ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
Sairam ji.
Radhe Radhe, 1 second.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
Yeah. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Okay. शक्तिमान की शक्तिया अगणित यद्यपि बखान राधे राधे तीन महामाया जीव अरु परा त्रिशक्ति प्रदान राधे राधे Lord Krishna possesses innumerable powers, out of which 3 are main, Maya, Jeev, and Parashakti.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sairam ji. We'll take 1 more hand and then we call it quits. Go ahead,
Okay.
You didn't get a chance, Shiramya. You want to sacrifice or you want to do it? Okay, you pick whoever. Let's do that quickly.
Okay.
If you pick quickly, we'll do 1 more.
Okay. Okay, I'll sing and then Riya ji maybe if possible. Okay. शक्तिमान की शक्तियाँ अगणित यद्यपि बखान राधे राधे तीन महामाया जीव अरु परा त्रिशक्ति प्रधान राधे राधे जय राधे कृष्ण राधे राधे Radhe Krishna Radhe.
Wonderful. Shiramya, you there? Okay.
Shiramya ji and Riya ji. Shiramya ji.
Okay, Riya ji. Quickly go. Okay, Shiramya, go ahead and then Riya ji. We'll take both of them quickly. We can do it in 60 seconds. Go ahead, please.
Shiramya ji, Radhe Radhe. Thank you.
Radhe Radhe. Shaktiman ki shaktiyan अगणित यद्यपि बखान राधे राधे दिन महान माया जीवा अरुपरा त्रिशक्ति प्रदान राधे राधे जय राधे कृष्ण राधे 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 कृष्ण राधे थैंक यू
Thank you, Riya ji. Real quick.
Yes, Radhe Radhe Riya ji.
Thank you. Radhe Radhe. शक्तिमान की शक्तियाँ अगणित यद्यपि बखान राधे राधे तीन महामाया जीव अरु परा त्रिशक्ति प्रधान राधे राधे Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Riya ji. All right, Tanmay ji, tomorrow we give you the first preference, so please don't forget to raise your hand. And I'm going to speak about this verse as well a little bit tomorrow, in tomorrow's session. So, but thank you again, everybody. I'd like to wrap it up on time. Please fill out the feedback tracker if not already. I hope you enjoyed the conversation today, and we'll continue to build on this topic and as well as the mind management topic that we have picked up in our Soul Soup segment. So thank you everybody for your engaging, enthusiastic participation. Like always, stay blessed. Good night, good day from my side, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Radhe Radhe, good night.
Thank you, everyone. See you all tomorrow. Radhe Radhe.
Bye.